AKPA, Bedtime Storytime. AKPA, Bedtime Storytime.
Good evening, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of AKPA's Bedtime Storytime. Tonight, I will be reading I Love My Dad. One summer day, Jimmy the little bunny and his two older brothers were riding their bicycles. Their dad sat in the backyard reading a book. The two older bunnies laughed loudly as they raced. "Hey, wait for me. I want to race too," he shouted. But his brother were too far away and his bike was too small. Soon, his brothers returned, giggling to each other. "It's not fair," screamed Jimmy. "I want to ride your big bikes too." "But Jimmy, you're too small," said his oldest brother. "And you don't even know how to ride a two-wheeler," said the middle brother. Jimmy ran to his brothers and grabbed one of the bicycles. "Just watch," he said. "Be careful," yelled the oldest brother, but Jimmy didn't listen. Throwing one leg over, he tried to climb the large bike. At that moment, he lost his balance and crashed on the ground, directly into a mud puddle. His two older brothers burst out laughing. Jimmy jumped on his feet and wiped his muddy hands on his dirty pants. This just caused his brothers to laugh more. "Sorry, Jimmy," said the oldest brother in between laughter. "It's just too funny." Jimmy couldn't stand it anymore. He kicked the bike and ran home with tears streaming down his face. Dad watched his sons from the backyard. He closed his book and went towards Jimmy. "Honey, what happened?" he asked. "Nothing," grumbled Jimmy. Dad smiled. "I know what can make you laugh," he said quietly. "Nothing can make me laugh now," said Jimmy, crossing his arms. "Are you sure?" said Dad, and began to tickle Jimmy until he smiled. Then he tickled him so much that Jimmy started to giggle. They rolled on the grass, tickling each other until they both laughed loudly. Still hiccuping from his hysterical laughter, Jimmy jumped on Dad's lap and hugged him tight. "I was watching you ride your bike," said Dad, hugged him back. "And I think you're ready to ride a two-wheeler." Jimmy's eyes sparkled with excitement. He jumped on his feet. "Really? Can we start now? Please, please, Dad." "Now you need to take a bath," said Dad, smiling. "We can start practicing first thing tomorrow morning." After a long, relaxing bath and a family dinner, Jimmy went to bed. That night, he could barely sleep. He woke up again and again to check if it was morning. As soon as the sun rose, Jimmy ran to his parents' bedroom. Jimmy tiptoed toward their bed and gave his father a little shake. Dad just turned to the other side and continued snoring peacefully. "Daddy, we need to go," Jimmy murmured and pulled off his covers. Dad jumped and his eyes flew open. "Ah, what? I'm ready." While the rest of the family was still sleeping, they brushed their teeth and went out. As he opened the door, Jimmy saw his orange bike sparkling in the sun. The training wheels were off. "Thank you, Daddy," he shouted as he ran to his bike. "Let's have some fun," Dad said, putting on his helmet. Jimmy took a deep breath, but didn't move. Mumbled Jimmy, his voice shaking. "I'm scared. What if I fall again?" "Don't worry," reassuring his dad. "I'll stay close to you and catch you if you fall." Jimmy hopped on his bike and began to paddle slowly. When the bike tipped to the right, Jimmy leaned to the left. Sometimes the little bunny fell down, but he didn't give up. He tried over and over again. Day after day, they practiced together. Dad held on while Jimmy wobbled, and eventually the little bunny learned to pedal fast. Then, one day, Dad let go, and Jimmy could ride all by himself without falling even once. Dad smiled. "Now that you know how to ride, you'll never forget it." "And I can race too," exclaimed Jimmy. That day, Jimmy raced with brothers. Guess who won the race? The end. Good night, boys and girls. I'll see you next week for another episode of AKPA's Bedtime Storytime. Bye-bye.
AKPA, Bedtime Storytime. AKPA, Bedtime Storytime.